Which brings me to my next topic. Christian McCaffrey is on pace to lead the league, and he is leading the league in touches. He's leading the league in yards from scrimmage. What a Herculean effort he's put forth so far this season, but it seems unsustainable. It also seems a little strange considering he's not quite the player he was a few years ago. He's averaging 3.5 yards per carry. I guess Kyle Shanahan feels that's the best way to win games, but then they're up like 17 late against the Giants, and McCaffrey's still getting carries, and it almost looks like they're trying to pad his stats. How do you interpret moments like that?
Well, I noticed on the game clock last Sunday, it was 1:21 left in the fourth quarter, and they're up comfortably. The game's the W's already been put in the board, and McCaffrey's still getting carries. And I'm thinking, like, now why is he in the game at this point? The game's won. There's the risk, and then not only about that factor, I've got a running back behind him, Brian Robinson Jr., who's more than adequate to close out a ball game. And so why? His injury history in the last 3-4 years, how many games he's missed over the course, and I got a game against the Rams coming up the following Sunday. I'm taking him out. The last 1 minute and 21 seconds of a ball game. What is to be gained by him carrying a ball in a game which is already won? If he gets aggravated with a hamstring or his Achilles, you lose the guy for the following week or how many weeks after that when you really will need him.
It doesn't make any sense from a football standpoint, and it doesn't seem like something a smart coach would do. He seems like a smart coach. He is a smart coach, but he's also sort of the general manager of this team, and maybe there's a conflict of interest here. I mean, someone wanted to give Christian McCaffrey that extension last year. It looked like one of the worst extensions in franchise history, considering he was injured when he signed it. And so maybe now Kyle, if he's wearing a million hats, maybe the GM Kyle is thinking, hey, the more I give him the ball, the better that contract that looks, and the less heat I get in the organization from the media. I mean, it's a theory.
Well, there are former Niner players who have said that they've been with other ball clubs throughout the league. They say the Niners run and practice at a tempo more intense in a more contracted period of time than other clubs with which they've been throughout their NFL history. And maybe that's a factor in the injury situation about how hard, and I'll use the word how hard Kyle rides them, but there's a reason why they have lost more games to injured players in the last 5 or 6 years than any other. There were over 2,000 lost games because of injured players since 2016 or 17, and by far it leads the NFL with the most during that time span.
Let me ask you this. I'm asking you to speak for someone who's passed away, but Al Davis, if he were you worked for Al for a long time. If he were the owner of this team and they had this same issue year in and year out, most injured team in the league, how would he feel about that? What would he do about that? And particularly the injuries in practice. How would he feel about those?
That was unforgivable. Al, he says, okay, players are going to get injured in ball game. That's understandable. But he said, my God, to get them hurt in practice, that's bad coaching. You got to have your drills, your routine, your warm-ups, and those things structured. Get the players through the practices, achieve what you want to achieve, accomplish the drills, the technique, the mechanics, the play polish. But, we always had a rule, stay off the ground, especially with all the trench warfare going on and all that. And we would, instead of running 5 or 6 one-on-ones with pass rush, we'd say, okay, you're going to get 2. And then let's say we're going to go play a team like Seattle on turf up north when they had the King Dome and they had the great pass rushers back then. And they could really get off the ball and accelerate. Well, we would take Art Shell or Henry Lawrence or some of the other tackles, and they would have a one-on-one in pass rush and take a couple reps. After practice, we'd take a wide receiver, take the tackle, and have that wide receiver line up as a defensive end pass rusher and come off the ball full speed in a short distance without contact with the tackle, just so the tackle could get a kick step and get the feel of what it was like to go against a speed guy on the outside. So we would take a wide receiver and say, okay, we just want you to pass rush. Come up the field 5 yards, full speed, off the edge, on your movement, bam, and have the tackle kick step and get the feel of pass setting against speed. And rather than taking another defensive lineman and going at him one-on-one, but we just, rather than risking an injury in that respect, we would just use a controlled environment to give the tackle the simulation of what it's going to take to get a kick step against a speed pass rusher.
Bill Kennedy has a question for you. Sorry, off topic, Tom. What is it going to take for the Raiders to be competitive? New ownership, new coaching staff, the Raiders.
I saw something the other day. Tom Brady cloned a dog. Okay. Well, Tom, he's with this company in Texas or wherever that he's invested in it and all that. He needs to be cloning players and quarterbacks and all that rather than cloning dogs. But anyway, there's several players away. They drafted a running back with the 6th pick in the first round, and he needs to carry the ball more than 12 or 13 times a game. I'm sorry, you got to be able to run the rock, and you can't go play a team and say you want to run the ball, and then 8 of the first 10 plays you call are passes in a game in which you claim you want to run the ball. So I just, there's a myriad of issues.
Yeah, and Chip Kelly is a lot of them.